Hello and welcome to the Bad Movie Reviews channel, hosted by none other than your two favourite Aussie depressed boys, Ben and Daniel, with a bit of a Hollywood glam, you'd say. Reviewing Babylon. For anyone who doesn't know, if you've only just joined us for this review, this has probably been my most highly anticipated film for an extremely long time.
Yeah, definitely for a while.
Damien Chazelle is probably my favourite director. La La Land, Whiplash, First Man. He can do no wrong. And I've been looking forward to this, and you probably didn't really know much, and you haven't actually seen any of those films I just named. So
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. I haven't seen a single thing, but I've heard some good stuff.
yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Babylon, obviously written, and if you don't know, Damien Chazelle, he writes all his films as well as directs it.
I reckon you've said that to me.
Starring Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt, Diego Calva, and basically it takes place in, I guess, the 1920s of Hollywood, where they're converting from essentially from non-talking or like no sound film to silent films to films with obviously sound. So that's kind of, I guess, the loose plot. It's there's a lot that happens here, but what were your overall thoughts? I've got a lot I want to touch on.
There is a lot to unpack in this film. Is for anyone that watches any of our reviews, I never know anything about most of the films that we go into, and this was one of them again. I just knew that I had to dress up and look fancy for tonight, which I've done. But look, it was chaos. It had everything
Chaotic, yeah.
in a film. Like you pick a category, it nearly had it. At times there was so much depth to scenes and scenarios and shots and characters, and then bang, it was abrupt at the same time as having all this depth. It had it switched between a bunch of different stories as telling at the exact same time, but all the stories that was telling, they didn't pull away from the overall plot. Like it didn't create
the
like a
overall
distraction.
arc of the film, yeah.
Yeah, it really just created that depth. And then they hit it with the abruptness, and it was messed up, and it was awesome. And I don't know where to start. Like, to be honest, it wasn't what I was expecting. It was a phenomenal film. The audio design, next level. The score overall feels like something, even though I know it's old stuff that's already, been made and it's revamped, but it's something I could sit there and listen to again. It was beautiful. It was a lot of it was choice.
That's one thing I will kind of what you said is like it's kind of revamped. A lot of it is original score. There are like chords and remnants of La La Land score, but like played onto a more grander scale. So it's not like they've copied and plastered films. It's the same composer. So I don't want anyone to think that they've went and plagiarized film scores of anyone.
No, it's its own take, that's for sure. But it wasn't what I was expecting. The cinematography was unreal. The shots were next level and had so much depth and accuracy to them. And I've got to give props to the director, and I can see why he's made 4 films, which are probably your 4 favorite films ever. Because that was great.
This is his 4th film, yeah.
That was great. Look, awesome. I can't have any bigger props for it. I'm sure he'll touch on a little bit more of the stuff in detail, but definitely worth a watch in my opinion.
I think it's definitely worth a watch in cinema too.
Without a doubt.
To touch on it, I think in terms of plot-wise, it's probably not Damien Chazelle's best written film. I think Whiplash had a very, not basic plot, but it was a very simple one, and La La Land was relatively similar. It was about 2 lovers in LA. One wanted to be a musician, one wanted to be this is just batshit fucking mental. It's batshit crazy. There's multiple characters and multiple linear stories getting told, but they all kind of obviously mix into the one overall arcing movie. I want to touch on one thing in terms of the tech side of this. I can imagine a lot of this sweeping the Oscars, in terms of not obviously visual effects, it's not going to happen, Avatar, but in terms of costume design, it is phenomenal. Obviously period piece kind of thing, 1920s, but the cinematography, the whole film is just absolutely beautiful. The camera movement, which we've obviously come to kind of, I guess, expect with La La Land and Whiplash. You get Whiplash, you had obviously the drumming and the zip pans, and then La La Land had a lot of one shots. In this film, there were 5-minute one shots while there's parties happening with hundreds and hundreds of people in this shot, and it is just technically just baffles me the amount of rehearsing that potentially would have taken, or how many takes they did.
Also cohesive.
Yeah, and it all works so brilliantly. And Justin Hurwitz, this is probably my favourite score of his. He's a common collaborator with Damien Chazelle, and he's only done 3 film scores, which is Whiplash, La La Land, and First Man, which are all Chazelle's films, and then this as well, which I think he's won pretty much 3 from 3 Oscars or whatever he's been nominated for. And he's every score. I wish he does more. Like I wish he did more, but it seems like I think they're friends that met at like university, and they've just been constantly collaborating since, which is good on him. But I wouldn't mind him doing other stuff as well, because I just can't get enough of this. I'll probably go home and not that I'm not home, but I'll probably go and cry in bed and listen to the score or buy it on vinyl ASAP. But the other thing I wanted to touch on is the editing. Like being a 3-hour and 10-minute film, you said it as well. Like you said it perfectly. It's a chaotic film, but in the best way possible. Like there's no rest. It doesn't feel 3 hours. It's not like a slog. And the editing is so fast paced and so good. It's just, I was just kind of constantly in awe that technically this film existed in a way. Like it's just, I was grinning ear to ear the whole time. Touching on the actual performance side of things, Diego Calva, who plays Manny, was fantastic. I think that's genuinely the first film I've seen him in, and I thought he was brilliant.
Yep.
Brad Pitt was also unreal. He's extremely a charismatic guy, which you've come to expect, but I'm living for this time where he's done films like Once Upon a Time and this, where they're like a lot more serious roles, but there's also a lot of parallels with, what's his name? Jack Conrad's character with Brad Pitt's character in real life, Brad Pitt in real life, not that he's a character. There's a lot of parallels there, and I thought that was brilliant. But Margot Robbie quite literally steals the scene. Every time she's in the scene, she steals it. Like
without a doubt.
It's such a shame because, like, I think obviously if you've watched my Golden Globes discussion, I kind of chatted about it and said, look, I can't really talk too much about Babylon because I haven't seen it, similar to Tara and the Whale, which we'll see shortly. But it's such a shame. It's a stacked year because, like, she's been nominated for Wolf of Wall Street, I, Tonya. I think this is by far and away her best performance. It's just the fact that she's got Michelle Yeoh, and I think she's a supporting actress, so she's going up against Angela Bassett and Kerry Condon from Banshees, which I think probably have a little bit more of an impact, you'd say, with their screen time. But like Margot, seeing the scenes where like she's filming a movie and like she's like, you know, playing herself and can like in the film confused, and then they're like action, and then she like just starts crying and then cut, and then she's like, okay. Like it's just like the levels of performance you have to kind of pull that off is just baffling. And I thought she was absolutely brilliant. But I love this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's a struggle to recency bias aside. I don't want to rank it or anything because it's technically a 2022 film, but it is easily in my top 5 films of technically last year. This year it'd be my number 1 favorite, being that it's 2023, but we've only seen 4 films. But I can understand though why it is, or why it could be perceived as polarizing. It's very much the best way to put it, and I'm not claiming this is my own comment. The best way to put it, I have seen this on Twitter, is it is very much a love letter to film, similar to The Fabelmans in a way. Like this just shows so much passion towards film, but it's also like a hate like letter or a massive fuck you to Hollywood in a way.
Without a doubt.
Which like I can understand why a lot of critics and like people might not like that, because there's no other way to put it. It's obviously like, that I hate Hollywood, but like the fact, put all that fucked shit behind the cameras aside that happens with all the parties, pedophilia, drugs, the stuff that they make in front of the camera and put all together. And quite literally you see that obviously like with a massive sequence towards the end. Like that's why people go to the movies. That's the magic. You escape, you feel something. And I think that's just why I connect to it on such a deeper, profound level as well. Similar to The Fabelmans, is I just love film. I have since I can remember, and just seeing like a director put all of his love into something that just like pays respect to obviously what's come before it, what's coming now, and then the future. Possibly one of my favorite films of all time. We'll see. Like, no, I'm not like, I'll have to watch it again and again and again. Like I think I've watched like La La Land and Whiplash, as I said, same director. I've watched them countless of times and they've never grown. I'll do the same with this, but I think it's based on. I always base films on rewatchability, and if you always pick up on more the second, third time, or have different.
For people like myself, I guess, who maybe haven't seen some of his other work, how does it compare to like La La Land? And
I think that this is a film that.
because this was very chaotic, very abrupt at times too.
Yeah, Whiplash is chaotic in the terms that it's edited. Whiplash has very similar editorial skills where, like, when the man's playing the trumpet and drums, it's like very like.
Oh, okay,
chaotic
yeah, those
editing.
quick pans.
Yeah, and similar to La La Land, but in terms of the plot and the pacing and the actual film, La La Land's like almost a romantic, not comedy, but like, not that I don't want to put you off it, but
No, that kind
it's
of
like
style.
a very, very
Yeah.
sad, somber, like romantic, very slow, like easy watching film. Whiplash is a film that I've watched with extreme anxiety because it's, I mean, you've seen the videos of J.K. Simmons in that where it's like not my tempo. Like, it is fast paced, performed brilliantly, edited so well. He's obviously his debut film. I think the Whiplash, he made a student film for his university about because he played drums. So it was like a true story about his life when he was like 13, 14.
Yeah.
And he made like a 7-minute short film for his final at university in the States, and then got given, $2 million to make
That's pretty cool.
a film out of
That's
it,
awesome.
and turned it into obviously a budding film
I might
career.
have to watch them because if it's anything like them or even compares, they're definitely worth a watch.
I think they're much more crowd pleasing films.
Okay, cool.
But it's
Cool,
not
cool, cool.
hard to hate. Like, it's not easy to hate on
La La Land.
Whiplash. La La Land it is because it's kind of a musical, which a lot of people don't like.
A froth musical.
Yeah, I love musicals, whereas some people just don't like musicals.
No, that's fair
really.
enough. Yeah, cool.
But this film, I can understand why some people. It is crude at times. Like, none of his films are like that. Like, it does show some pretty fuck shit at times.
So did this
None
film.
of his.
This was very
well, no,
disturbing.
that's what I'm saying. This film was
Yeah.
very disturbing. Showed some like La La Land's, a PG rated thing, and
Gotcha.
Whiplash just has some language. That's about it. But it's great to see him doing very different stuff. Even First Man, which is with Ryan Gosling, also was a biopic about Neil Armstrong going to the moon, and that was very much like a character drama about the complexities and the psychological dealings of going to space. And it's crazy to see just how vastly different his filmography is after 4 films, and I think he's only 35 years old. So I've done a lot with my life.
I need to start doing something.
Damien Chazelle, if you ever watch this, we love you.
Yeah.
Stop, leave some talent for the rest of us. Other than that, have we really got...
No, it is just a phenomenal film. It's worth a watch. It's chaotic. It's full of depth, and it is beautiful. And yeah, definitely put it on your list.
Go watch it in the cinema, I beg you. I think it's got very polarizing reviews and hasn't done well at the box office, which doesn't necessarily surprise me, being that Avatar came out at the same time.
Yeah, it's a rough gig.
It's a rough time, but please go see it. Support this movie. I love it. I've got nothing else more to say. Other than that, we'll catch you later this week for our review of Tar, which we're all super excited for. So we'll catch you then.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.